Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from group 5. We are going to explain about skills of opening and closing lessons.
Skills to open listen are activities carried out by lecturer to create an atmosphere that is mentally prepared and attentive to student. The skill of closing listen is an activity carried out by the teacher or lecturer to end the core activities of the lesson. Both of these skills need to be trained to lecture because the skill to open listen are very important to attract attention and motivate students so that they are willing to follow the delivery of material that will be carried out by the lecture. Likewise, the skill of closing listen has an important role for the lecture to confirm or conclude from the material that has been discussed during the lecture hours in question. The beginning and end of class. Instructor can deploy a variety of strategies depending on local class culture, adapted from Lang 2016. First, ask question, review earlier session, reactivate prior knowledge, writing exercise. In addition, some example of end of class instruction include review, summary, exploring confusion, and preview.
Next, we will discuss about journal related to the topic of opening and closing lesson with the title Lesson Openings: How Teachers Begin Lesson in an English Class.
Abstract. A lesson opening is the first phase of a lesson structure. Generally, it is the first 3 to 15 minutes of the lesson when teachers start to interact with students and the commencement of the first major activity. It plays a significant role in the lesson as it could determine whether learning would occur. The findings reveal variations in types and orders of lesson opening activities used by these teachers. Establishing an effective and cognitive framework and fulfilling the required institutional roles seem to be the main guiding principles of their lessons openings. According to Richards and Lockhart, lessons have a recognizable structure. The way classes are structured or lessons are organized into sequences is referred to as structuring, and there are four dimensions: opening, sequencing, pacing, and closure. The opening consists of the procedures the teacher used to focus the student's attention on the learning aim of the lesson. The sequencing means the sequence of the activities used to attain the goals of a lesson. The pacing is the extent to which a lesson maintains its momentum and communicates a sense of development. The closing is bringing a lesson to a close effectively. The opening or intro of a lesson generally occupies the first 5 minutes, and it usually consists of the procedures the teacher used to focus the student's attention on the learning aims of the lesson. It seems to be the moment that the teacher can decide whether the learners will be engaged in the lesson or not. If something goes wrong at this stage, it can affect the rest of the lesson. According to Lindsay, in the opening, the teacher should explain to the learners about the aims of the lesson, how the lesson links to previous ones, and what activities they are going to do. Topic talk in lesson beginnings also provides an opportunity to undertake talk unrelated to the lesson and is a significant aspect of students' participation. The beginning of a lesson is an unstable period of transitions because of many reasons that can undermine the main lesson. For example, students coming from other classrooms or somewhere outside the school. There are five main purposes of lesson beginnings. 1. To establish an appropriate effective framework. 2. To establish an appropriate cognitive framework. 3. To encourage student responsibility and independence. 4. To fulfill a required institutional role. And 5. To overcome pragmatic difficulty. There are a number of ways or choices that teacher should start a lesson. For example, the opening technique should relate with the content of the lesson. If informal talk or chatting will be used to open the lessons, the content will also determine the topic of the informal talk. This study was conducted to find out how teachers manage the first stage of the lessons or how they start the lessons and make use of the first few minutes at the beginning of the lesson.
Research methodology. The subject of this study were five English teachers Research methodology. The subject of this study were 5 English teachers teaching foundation English course at an undergraduate level. All 5 teachers had been teaching English for more than 10 years. So in the data collection, they were teaching different course. Teaching different course or different lesson did not matter in the study as the focus is on how teacher begin a lesson in a class. The semi-structured interview was used to clarify their rationales or purpose of the opening technique used. The major question inquired what they usually do to open the lesson, what they did in the recorded lesson, and why they did so, why they think about that opening technique. Next is data analysis. In data analysis, the opening activities of all 5 teachers were identified for the types of activities used and the time spent as well as the order of the activities. Then the purpose of the teacher, why they did such activities, were grouped based on the framework of McGrath, Davis, and Malpin. 1992. Lesson beginnings relating activities to purpose. Data presentation and discussion. In this section, it will consist of two main parts. The first part will discuss lesson opening activities used by the teacher, and the second part will discuss the underlying purpose of using lesson opening activities by teacher.
Lesson opening activity used by the teacher. Greeting, information talk, giving announcement, taking attention, review the lesson, reading activity, and last led into the topic or lesson. This is activity the teacher can do for the first 15 minutes of learning. Of the many activities suggest the teacher did not have all the initial teaching technique. Discussion within the first 15 minutes of the lesson conducted by the 5 subjects. None of the teacher went straight to the main lesson. Right, 2005 said the playful engagement can be promoted by teacher, both formally through social talk and more formally through activity designed to enable learner to play with the target language. Rather than going straight to the lesson in order to set the classroom and atmosphere. Getting was the first activity for lesson opening. Review segment to come after the other activity, like checking attendance and giving announcement, uh, previewing, followed the reviewing to start the main lesson. And the next teacher purpose of using lesson opening. The lessoning opening activity were analyzed based on the purpose that in the framework of McGrath, Davis, and Morpin in 1992. It was found that this activity matched for main purpose in the framework to establish the appropriate effective framework, cognitive framework, to fulfill the required intentional role and to overcome pragmatic difficulty. The first 3 main purpose could be main function that the teacher focus on the beginning of the lesson. We have any 4 purpose who must be delivered by the teacher. And first, to establish appropriate effective framework. Its main effective framework could be established by means of greeting, chatting, or information talk by work, activity, game, and each other. And next, to establish a processed cognitive frameworks. In the beginning of session, teacher seems to consider establishing the appropriate cognitive framework, include providing organized framework, stimulating awareness of needs, and highlighting relevant linguistic knowledge and relevant experience. And the next to fully required institutional role. Its main intentional role include giving feedback, like checking previous learning or homework, dealing with student attendance, and giving information at each other. And the last, to overcome pragmatic difficulty. It is pragmatic difficulty means reducing the disruption caused by late arriving student, why they late, and yeah, it's harder.
5.4 Discussion. In the context of this study, the teachers seem to focus on establishing effective framework, cognitive framework, and fulfilling the required institutional role. The teachers seem to pay more attention to affective factors than cognitive factors. Thus, it supports the study of lesson beginning by McGrath, Davis, and Mulvin, as in their study, the teacher approach to attach greater importance to affective than cognitive consideration. Thus, this finding relates to the concept that attention to affective factors in language learning should be considered, and it has been talking on greater importance in language teaching research and practice. However, STEM indicates that the function of affective establishment has the equivalent position of that cognition, and it doesn't mean that they are less concerned with cognition when the teacher includes attention to affective considerations. So, it can be said the importance of establishing a cognitive framework is considered similar to the affective framework, though the extent of teachers' attention on the cognitive framework is less in comparison to affective ones. Noticeably, in the old study, importance of the institutional role was same as the affective purposes. All the 5 teachers complete these institutional roles in the opening stage. 6. Conclusion and implication. The present study investigates what and how teachers in the lesson opening stage and explore the rationales or purposes why that in the first 15 minutes of the lesson none of the teachers went straight to main lesson. There were variations in types and order of lesson opening activities used by the teachers. Apart from greetings, reviewing and previewing were the more common ways to start the lesson. To facilitate students' learning, reviewing is beneficial to know about the success or failure of the previous learning, and previewing lets students see the importance and the current lesson and expect what is going to happen in the lesson. Most teachers didn't start the main lesson in the first 15 minutes. In the opening stage or beginning of the lesson, teachers can spend a few minutes on opening activities without going straight to the main lesson. Thank you.